Okay, good morning and welcome everyone to the Unlock Secure and Compliant Data Access and Sharing Across Regions webinar. Today's session is led by Pascal Gasp, Senior Solution Architect, Southern EMEA, and Arne Otten, Senior Solution Architect, Central EMEA. But before we start, I'm going to share a couple of housekeeping rules for today. This session is recorded and will be available on demand after the event. Please use the Q&A section throughout the session. Questions will be answered at the end. The chat function is also available for public and private messages, and you can send any specific questions directly to our speakers. My name is Victoria, and I'll be in the background today to assist. If you have any troubles with the platform, please drop me a message on the chat. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Pascal.
Pascal, you're still on mute.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pascal Gas. Thank you, Anna. I'm Pascal Gas, Solution Architect at Starburst. I joined Starburst 2 years ago, and I'm acting as a Solution Architect there. And today I'm gonna discuss about data sovereignty and the challenge we have, and data security and the challenge we have on data security and data sovereignty. And then I will hand over to Arne. We will demo you on some example how we can tackle this type of issue, and that's it. Let's set the context before starting. The big context is this one. We have the big challenge for the companies now is they are generating a ton of data on daily basis. Okay, and this ton of data is going to be the fuel of their, I would say that their business growth. And in the meantime, all of this data is spread across the globe. More or less, I would say that 10,000 data center with this, more or less 50 of these data centers is in US and 25% in Europe and the rest of the world. And all of this data is spread across the world. And for the company, the big challenge there to get the maximum of value, let's say from the big challenge to get the maximum of value for this data is they have to tackle 3 big points, but not the unique one, but let's say that the most important points, which is the data security, because this data is so precious for them. And it's very critical to be sure that the data is secure to avoid any data breach. Also, tackle the point of where the data is lived, where the data, the location of this data, because based on this location, they can have some sensitive data on that, and this sensitive data you have to apply some compliant. You have to comply some regional law on top of that. And last point, which is very relevant for us, is the fact that even they have this type of constraints, the big point is the accelerate the time to value and make sure that when they got access to their data, they get the high performance they can do, because they can by this way provide faster time to value on this data. And in the reality, let me just change my slide. The risk exists on this data constraints. You know, there is the big risk. I like to split that on two big points, 2 big buckets. The first one is the data breach, because as we can see, as we can report for European Union, we have more than 2 billion records this year in terms of data breach, and for only for this year. And if you look at the company, we can have several type of company on Hyundai for 3 million of database. You know the data they were breached. For example, in France, we had 43 million of people data were breached, and most recently, Everyone hear about the breach they had on Santander, where 12 million employees PI information was breached, and also more than 3 million of customer were impacted. And this is simple example. I don't want to make some finger pointing on that, but even you have a big company, you are exposed to this type of risk. And in the second bucket, you have also some regulation points. Where you have, if you look just for GDPR, you will see that at this time, at this point of time, now this year, if you look at the GDPR side, we report that the analysts report that more than 4.5 billion of fines were reached on the GDPR side. And the biggest, I would say that the biggest company impacted by this one is Meta, because they are paid, for example, just for this year, 1.2 billion of euro of fines. But in overall, since GDPR was implied, it's more or less close to 2.8 million or something like that. And as you can see, the report behind this fines is exploded, is close to be exponential. The big point there is to say that how we can tackle that, how we can address the point, and how at Starburst we try to address this point. The point is at Starburst, to address this challenge, we see the problem as five big points, four pillars. The first one, and is not related of Starburst, but it's a general point, is the fact that customers should address, when they have data strategies, the first thing is put the pillar of first point to address is data governance. Putting in place the right data governance policies, the right way to do that. I mean, what I mean behind that is the fact that having a data catalog that repository will be a repository of all of your data set, with the definition, where the data is live, where the description, that everyone can get this in this again access to this data repository and look at what looks like the data and where is data is it. It's the best first step to be applied to manage, to be ready to manage your data securely. Why? And then when you have this repository of data, the second thing is you can now clearly define the policy of how you're gonna collect, store, and access to this data, because you exactly know where is your data, what the type of data you have in your asset. And the last point is as well, because you can now have a holistic view of your data. You can easily define from where data is live, what the policy and what the regulation this data is to be you have to manage with. And the second point is related to the first one, but first one, let's say that you define the repository, define where you have what data you have, what is your data asset, what the strategy you will do in your data asset. And then the second one, you have to take in consideration all of the regulation, what type of regulation you have based on where your data is lived. Because by this way, you will be able to apply the right policy in the right data set. And work with the right people that they know exactly this one. The first one is a technology aspect. It says that define the right way to access to your data is the best way. I mean, let's say that on Starburst side, we are convinced that having an abstraction layer, let's say a single point of access, and avoiding moving data or copying data from one to another one, it's the best way to minimize the risk of data breach. And also the fact that being able to compute data close to where they live, it's the best way to then apply the policy or apply the rule you can do on the data. And we have solution on this one. And having this, let's say that abstraction layer on this single point for access, it's helped you now streamline the security. You can now define the right security for who is going to access to what based on the governance you defined, and and whatever the data is lived, this tool will help you to correctly access to the right data. And then you can also make audit on top of that. You can define type of data masking or data filtering on top of this one in simple way. And because we recommend to put let's say that an abstraction layer on single profile access, we have to be sure that this solution will be able to scale and give the best performance for the customer, because in other case you cannot achieve the point I raised before, the fact that the performance it's also the best driver for best time to insight. And last point and not least, but that's very important to take in consideration, let's say that 20% or 30% of data leaks is attributed on the human error. It means that let's cover this point by training your people, invest on your people, make them aware about what data sovereignty implication is. And the second one is as well, keep them aware about how does it impact the non-compliancy, what the impact, how that will impact the company. And lastly, continuously educate on the best practices and so on and so forth. And that's the best way to address this point of risk on data breach or data regulation. And at Starburst, because I talk about the data access, which is our main pillar we will cover with our solution, how we address this point. Starburst, what exactly is Starburst? I would say that, as I presented previously, Starburst is a single point of access. We provide like a gateway for every data consumption. And then we provide one single point and one single DSL on top of that. We simplify the way, we unify the way you get access to the data. Okay, and in the meantime, we also provide, we are sourcing your data governance tools, which is your data catalog or your security asset or something like that. We will be able to provide this information. By this way, you have just single point of access. With this single point of access, you can get access to your data, and we can retrieve to your data catalog or data governance all of the information they need to help you to manage properly your data set. And behind the scene, we provide a massive parallel query engine that helps you to get access to all of your data where they live. And as I said, because you have just one single endpoint where you get access to your data, we're now able to put the security in place and make it and streamline the security by one single point where you can put airbag in place, you can put data masking, data security, and also you can audit all of your queries on who is getting access to what when you have any issue or you want to report this one. If you look at Starburst properly, because now we said that we have one single point of access, which means that, okay, we can address how can get access to the data. But the second point is your data, as I said at the beginning, can be spread across the world, in several countries, different countries, and so on and so forth. And it's with Starburst, we have a solution that named is Target that helps you to make this to connect all of your data source or all of your data together with and provide let's say that a semantic layer for accessing of this data and keep you compute your data close to where they live. I will be more explicit on this one. It's if you look at this classical approach, if I have to explain that, let's say that if you have data living in Europe, you have data living in a pack, something like that, and you have to consolidate that, and you have to get access to that. A single approach it will be to say that you have to read directly a single table from you to a pack. You have to read directly the data, but that is not a right approach, because in this case you're gonna have a high latency on this one, because you get access directly to this information. That will highly cost you, because you have a lot of ingress there, and you have to bring all of your data in this one. And the last one is also the fact that, and the big point as we raised today, is the fact that you have data residency issues, because you're gonna take all of the data from here to bring into your local cluster and compute it. And in Starburst, our approach is clearly different. We say that keep data where they live. As I said so far, we can create different clusters and put the cluster in the region of your data, close to your data, and then connect the cluster together. And what the benefits of that? The benefits is the fact that now you can compute on where your data live, put the regulation here, improve the security by compute the data where they live, and retrieve data, just the data you need, to the local cluster what you want to go to, and you will be able to federate data in the both sides. And in the meantime, you can say that your query can be faster, because now you report the cluster, you report the workload on the cluster close to the data. And also you save bandwidth, because you don't have to copy all of your data from one to another one. This is the big value of having Starburst technology inside of this one. Let's say that if I recap this one, it will say that you will have Starburst on each side, and you will connect all of the Starburst together to make like a mesh approach. And because you know that Starburst will help you to regulate your security and something like that, you will have a secure architecture on top of your mind. Let me hand over to my friend Arne to probably demonstrate and show you how does it work.
All right. Thank you, Pascal, for setting the scene. And good morning from my side. I'm Arne Ottens, solution architect here at Starburst, same as Pascal. And if you already have questions around what Pascal just laid out for us, feel free to go to the Q&A section and put it in the chat, so we can already have a look and maybe take them also on stage once the demo is done. Before I jump into Starburst and show you what it's capable of, let me give you some context of what we are about to see. So imagine you're part of Acme Corporation, and you're spread across Europe, for example, or maybe even the world. You're operating in multiple countries. They all do have different kind of regulations, and you still want to do analytics. Of course, you're doing local analytics to analyze your local markets and do initiatives in there. But you also want to bring together all your data holistically to look at it from a global perspective, identify trends, maybe see different behavior in the different regions to address those. But there's these regulations Pascal just laid out, and we want to address them, right? But without, messing up, essentially. So how are we going to do that? Well, what Pascal just said, we'll be using Starburst, and especially Starburst Stargate. The architecture diagram Pascal showed you gave you an idea about what Starburst is capable. And that is, it can be connect to all kinds of different data sources, give you the single point of access into your data. But Starburst itself can be one of those data sources to Starburst itself through this Stargate capability. So we will have Starburst in different regions, as laid out here as countries, and then connect them through Starburst in order to achieve what we want to achieve. That is, have the local capabilities, but also have the global capabilities without violating our different regulations. So with that said, let's jump into one of my Starburst clusters. I have a couple at the top over here. And first of all, let me give you a short overview about the Starburst interface. So right now, we're seeing the overview of Starburst Enterprise. We're seeing the resources utilized so that our admins can make sure the platform is healthy and up and running, and your end users do not experience any glitches, outages, or whatnot. You see that we have a security section where you can then set these fine-grained access controls that we are about to touch later in this demo as well. And of course, you are able to query the data itself and also expose data products, which will be a highlight during this demo as well. Let me first go into this query editor, where we already see that we have lots of different data sources. And in these data sources, we have plenty of tables, plenty of data sets. But these are local to, in this case, my UK region. I do not want to expose all these different data sets to the headquarter, for example. And I would be violating different kind of regulations there as well. So what I would suggest in this regard is leverage our data products. Data products are essentially curated data sets that are meant for consumption and meant for sharing. And these data products will then be exposed to our headquarter cluster through Starburst Stargate. So let us look into our example data product we have over here. Burst Bank is our fictitious bank, our Acme corporation. And Burst Bank wants to expose its high-value customers or information about its high-value customers from the UK region up to the headquarters so that they can maybe run some analytics on it and drive certain initiatives based on that. Of course, this is already set up for us. So let me jump into the headquarter cluster. You see night mode, very important to differentiate our different regions here. And we can see I have different clusters in this query editor. We have France, we have Germany, we have the UK. And if I look into Germany, for example, we have a bunch of data sources exposed. If I go to France, it's much less already. But if you go to UK, where it's properly set up, we only see this burst bank I was just talking about. And inside there, we see our diamond customers. So the main question is now, how do we get these diamond customers into this burst bank? So switching back to my local cluster, the UK one, we're going to the query editor and simply run a query that we want to execute. And here comes a different benefit into play. Rather than moving data around from different data sources into a central place, I just connect to all these different data sources we have and can run my query even across different data sources. So now I created this data set. I have a result, looks fine. I want to attach it to a data product. So I simply click a button and add it to an existing data product, my Burst Bank product. I get my data set in here. It's the gold customers. I can give it a description so that others can really learn about this, know what it's used for, if the name is not expressive enough. And then we can even go further and document our different columns. And I know documentation about data sets or any other stuff is likely very hard and mostly neglected. So please do fill in those descriptions. We save and continue, save and review. And now we can publish those changes. So right now in my local clusters, this data product has two different data sets, the diamond customers and the gold customers. But it's not yet exposed to my headquarter cluster. We can verify this by jumping back and checking again. And you see it's still only diamond customers. Why is that? Because we did not yet explicitly give the permission that this data set is being shared. So going back to my local cluster, we go to the roles and privileges in the access control piece. We do have a role called FinServe Webinar for today's webinar, and this one is being used for the integration between the different clusters. So if I go in here and add a new privilege, I simply select my data products catalog. I will use the Burst Bank schema because I want to be very selective in what I'm exposing to the upstream cluster. And then I select my gold customers table and say, okay, we want to share all the columns and only give select permissions, right? We could now go even faster and provide column masking, pseudonymization, row level filters to really get this fine-grained access control and be very selective what we want to share upstream in order to stick to all those different kind of regulations and maybe also customer preferences. We save those privileges and we don't want to add any more for now. So if we now go back to our headquarter cluster and refresh here, we do see that in Burst Bank, we do have our gold customers available, and I can query those through this. So what's happening now is that we are not taking all the data that is exposed through the remote cluster, get the data and process it here. No, the processing is happening where the data lives, and that is my remote cluster. So we really just get back the result from the actual query definition, and that's very small in bandwidth that has to be used. So performance gain, no egress cost for that. And we stick to our regulations. That's the main benefit over here. But what does this all mean now? Now I have my UK data, I have my France data. We can run them over here as well. So now we're reaching out to two different clusters, getting similar results. And I want to expose them in a single data product, right? I want to union them essentially. So what we can do now is, of course, go to data products again, create a data product from scratch, like global reporting, for example. We select our data products, our domain, give it a summary, global reports, and then create our data set like global diamond customers, for example, and put in a union query. So we're now bringing together the data from these different regions with a selector. Again, get the columns and table structure. And now we can easily put an owner behind it. So a data product always needs an owner. So if something is going wrong, you exactly know who to reach out to. And then we can publish this one as well. And now this one is ready for consumption through, for example, a BI tool, through maybe some Jupyter notebooks, what have you, and can be used for consumption, for creating new value, all with sticking to your regulations. No data movement involved, no copying involved, just what we want to have. And now in this headquarter cluster, we can again apply access control mechanisms on top of it in order to maybe provide access to this report only to a certain set of users within the headquarter, and again have all the different aspects that would apply, like fine-grained access control, column filters, row filters, column masks, etc. Really fine-grained access control on different levels over here. And that's really about it on how to easily share data cross-regional and stick to all your regulations, have it easily handled, have it in one place, through one interface, through one standard, without having to deal with a jungle of different tools, all from one platform, be cloud, on-prem, you name them. With that, let's jump back to our slides for a moment. What did we achieve? Yeah, we started in data products, in Finale, you could say. We simply solved the issue of sharing data across different regions while sticking to different regulations. We achieved that with no data movement involved. Only the result sets, the aggregated values, will be transmitted over the wire. We also achieved it with fine-grained access control. So we are really in charge of who can access what, even at what time, you could say. And yeah, we simply met all the different regulations that could be in place. And what's maybe even more important than all that, we stay in control. It's not any other vendor where we have to move data into. We're just connecting to what you already have. So if you do not like the solution, you can get rid of it without your data being kept hostage. You are in control and you stay in control. That brings us to the Q&A section already. And I'm wondering if we do have some questions already.
Thank you, Arne.
Looking in the Q&A section, I don't see any questions. Maybe people are still typing. Maybe give them 2-3 more minutes for questions that come up. And I will use those 2 to 3 minutes to already say thank you for signing up for today, for joining. I really do hope that you took something away from it, that you enjoyed the session, and that we can welcome you to the next one that's about to come up. And maybe Pascal wants to say thank you as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Arne, for the great demo. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I will take over to Vic to give us some word about the next session.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you all so much, both to our speakers and to you all for spending the time to share such fantastic content and insights with us. Thank you all for spending your morning with us. As I mentioned earlier in the session, we'll be sending the webinar recording from today so that you can go back to anything you may have missed or just want to have a second look at. And if you want more information on Starburst or any of the topics covered here today, please feel free to reach out to me directly or to our speakers. Thank you, everyone. We'll be in touch with information about the next sessions. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you all.